You are watching CIOTV by Enterprise IT World, a production of Accent Infomedia.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, those who are present physically as well as virtually on this hybrid event. And we are given the responsibility to talk about that is our generation or is our organization ready for the kind of the latest sophisticated generation V kind of an attack, which is happening on a daily, regular basis. And I welcome all the panelists on this discussion. So we have Hakim, we have Ajit Pillai, and we have Bijender Mishra. So very esteemed panelists, experience. We have seen that kind of an attack which was happening 4 years back, where just targeting the systems and including the organization assets. People were not targeted, and the data each people or the organization asset could generate, they were of at least prime target, but the shift has been a big thing. It's an exponential shift right now. Instead of just doing the denial of service kind of an attack, nowadays with the generation V, it is destruction as a services actually, which is going on. So with this, I pass and I welcome all the panelists to the discussion, and would like each panelist to introduce themselves and take it forward. Thank you.
So I will start first. Good afternoon. My name is Bijender Mishra. I am the Chief Information Security Officer at Alkem Labs. I take care of cybersecurity landscape of Alkem Labs and subsidiaries. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I think most of the people know me. You have seen me talking, but let me introduce myself. I'm Ajit Pillai. I drive the business for Morphisec for Asia Pacific and Japan. And I've been a security veteran. Started off my career with Trend Micro, Checkpoint, McAfee, and that's why most of them know me. And that's it from my side.
Thank you.
Hi. So I introduced myself earlier as well. So I'm Hakimuddin Wadlawala, founder of ProTechmanize. You guys can call me Hakim. I'm not that experienced like the fellow panelists here, but I'm one of the person who have been on the other side of the table as well. And then we are on this side of the table. So I think the discussion today is going to be interesting because I see all three flavors. We have got partner, we've got vendor, we've got customer, and all three flavors are on this table. Look forward for the discussion.
Thank you. So audience will be wondering now, what is this kind of generations we are talking about, and was especially on the generation V kind of an attack. So I would request the panelists if they could brief us about in terms of the kind of generation V attack, what it is all about, what they actually do, and how does it affect a particular organization or an industry or a sector.
Sure. So I will take this question. Thank you very much. So when we talk about generation, I mean, we have seen that during 80s, we talk about generation first, when this type of attack started, and we started with virus, So generation one was, where we talked about virus. We used to have, Windows 95 or DOS-based systems, and virus started, to create problems for individuals and also for businesses. Then if you see, I mean, during last 20, 25 years, I mean, the threat surface has been evolving like anything, So we started during 80s, we started with the generation 1. In 90s, we also witnessed generation 2. In 2000, we also witnessed generation 3. 2010, we witnessed generation 4. And the first, I mean, disaster we have seen in 2017 when generation 5 cyber attack happened, And now we are talking about generation 6 cyber attacks, So this journey, I mean, from, generation 1 to generation 5, I mean, it has been very painful journey for corporates. I mean, I know many companies due to these cyber attacks, they had to, close their operations, and they made have huge financial losses. So currently we are talking about generation 5, So generation 5 is a multi-vector, attack which has been designed to make a major disasters. And we have seen last year, I mean, multiple such incidents happened. We talk about colonial pipeline. We talk about Transnet cyber attack, which happened in South Africa, for 15, 16 days, trucks were just, got stuck at different ports. So that was another big disaster we have seen last year. So now these, the surface of, attack has been evolving rapidly. We have seen, and we talk about all surface, we talk about, human surface, we talk about physical surface, or we talk about digital surface, in fact, So all surfaces, surfaces has been on high target for cyber criminals. And accordingly, the attack vectors are also, we talk about phishing attacks, we talk about ransomware attack. And we have seen that when we used to talk about ransomware attack, we just talked about ransomware. Then we started to hear about double extortion ransomware attacks. Now we are hearing triple extortion ransomware attack. So attack vectors are also getting more power day by day, and that is really creating a big pain for corporates, and it's a serious matter of concern for everyone. So that's my submission, Mr. Faiz.
Thank you, Bijender, for answering that. And I just want to add, before I move on to Ajit Pillai to explain something actually especially for us, is that earlier the ransomware were designed in such a way that they hack your asset, and they could just try to gain a financial thing with respect to from a particular company they attack, and that's it. 95%, though 95% of the victims who have paid ransomware have never got the full key for the encryption. That is a well-known fact. But nowadays, this ransomware attacks at multi-level, which is happening, is just not for the payment. Though in the past, history has taught us that despite paying the ransomware, we never got the complete key, and the data was not completely decrypted with the respect to whatever payment happened. But nowadays, as I mentioned during the start of the conversation, destruction of a system or services is the next upcoming thing. And with respect to that, when Ajit was discussing with respect to Morphisec about moving target defense, I think so that plays a very key and important role, apart from your endpoint security, apart from your because organization assets, people, process, technologies, they could be on cloud, they could be on-prem, or they could be myself, person, employee, moving from one city to another city or working from home. And I could use, with respect to my BYOD policy, I could use my personal devices for company's network or to do something, though I have containerization actually on my systems implemented. But how does this help? So I'll move on to Ajit Pillai to help us further.
Okay, thank you. So before I get into that side of the question, I would like to add to what our esteemed panelists said. When you look at the latest cyber threats which has been there, you need to look at the dark world. The dark world has evolved over a period of time. They are more organized. Today, you cannot talk about one attack, two attacks. It's the ransomware attack, man-in-the-middle attack. It is all a collaborative effort which has been done. And that is why no one technology is a silver bullet for protection. And it is evolving. Today, you look at organizations, they start talking about dark web monitoring. Why is the need for monitoring the dark web? Is because you are doing a catch-up game from the cybersecurity perspective. Now, coming to the other angle for what he has said, when you look at a cyber kill chain today, it is not one technique which has been used. Earlier, when we started off, as I said, when I started off with Trend Micro, there was a virus, you have an antivirus. It was very static. You do your scans, your signatures are updated. You can be at least rest assured that you're secure. Today, there are multiple points which have been there, and there are gaps in the solutions what we have got. So what is the best way to move forward is the biggest challenge for a customer, for an OEM, for a system integrator, or anyone. So in this challenging world is where we introduced a technology. I don't want to talk about it, you have heard it. So generally, this is the pace which has been happening. Want me to add more?
Yes, I would like you to add more, actually, definitely.
Yeah, okay. So the other thing, we were talking about some attacks, right? When you really look at even the biggest of the biggest organizations like Samsung, they have been breached. It's a big question mark to all the CISOs because their jobs are at stake. They are looking at the infrastructure. They are looking at data privacy on one side. They are dealing with multiple issues. In India today, we don't have regulatory compliance, which has been pushed to all organizations, especially to manufacturing, etc. But at the same time, you look at a BFSI, a banking sector, they are in a highly regulated environment. They are answerable to RBI for every small transaction. And the biggest challenge for them is how to deal with all this external threats, internal threats, and what kind of policies which we need to do. And today, one of the main areas which is coming up is incident response services, because we have to be proactive. And when you talk about incident response, it's not about just VAPT or just your compliance activity. What is the incident response framework which has been done? When you get breached, who is the first person you reach out to? How do you actually contain it? What needs to be done? That paradigm needs to come into the security fraternity, and services plays a very, very key part. No matter how much automation you do, you will have to have that services preparedness. That's it.
Thank you, Ajit. So would like to add something more actually on that. Like earlier generations or 4 or 5 years back, actually, I could say, security incident response team was a knee-jerk reaction. Organization only realized the need when they were into some trouble in terms of, something happening with respect to some ransomware incident or some financial losses or reputational damage. But nowadays, I think so with Generation V, it is the need of an hour. So having the CSIRT team with respect to who's reporting and also working along with the local government and the geographies, apart from the industry specific compliance and standard, which has having like mandatory and discretionary reporting with respect to the incident, when it happened, on what platform it happened, how are you mitigating, and reporting the financial losses too. So that is very crucial and need of the hour with respect to Generation V kind of an attack which is happening. And we are also part of the Generation V, by the way. So thank you. So I'll move on to the next question with respect to how does this real-time threat preventive systems and systems powered by artificial intelligence and machine learning, you talk about SOAR, EDR, XDR, which are behavioral based rather than the rules or role based actually. How does such systems help organization to mitigate and address the Generation V kind of an attack which we are seeing as of today?
So when you really look at fifth generation attacks, or Generation V, which has been addressed here, there is no, why is it called fifth generation or sixth generation? Because you're not able to identify one component of an attack and start focusing on it. There are multiple things. It could be man in the middle attack. And that's when I talked earlier that you have a cyber kill chain. When you look at the dark world, you've got groups who are into reconnaissance separately. You got groups who are into exfiltration separately. And of course, your Bitcoins are there, which have been used for trading information. Now, today, the biggest challenge for a CISO is my IP traded in the dark world? I need to know, so I need to be proactive. So one of the major things, what I would like to say is we need to put proactive measures. And when I suggested having services, it's primarily to create an it doesn't mean that you have to put so much skill sets to handle this right away. Have a framework and look at how to actually tackle this. And on the other side, you also need to do a continuous evaluation of gap analysis, which needs to be done to tackle this generation. You look at all those big vendors like Checkpoint, Palo Alto, all of them are talking about Generation 6 attack today. And that is because they are not being able to pinpoint or one or two techniques. And in my presentation, I did talk about the Maitre attack framework. When you look at the Maitre attack framework, it has got tactics and techniques. The whole industry was looking at techniques all this while. How do you actually break these tactics which has been used by the dark world? We need to be 2 steps ahead than the dark world for us to actually start protecting. These are the basic elements for tackling this fifth generation attacks, or even 6th generation attacks. And all these attacks are all state sponsored and they have objectives. And that's when the panelists have been saying that it is no longer just taking money away, it is breaking down your system. It has got much more impact than what kind of damages it used to be happening earlier.
You want to add something?
So I wanted to add on the question that you asked at the initials is, we have seen the approach, from the generation one and where we are today, but it's not that, and I look at it from a different side of the table. I see that rather than the ransom guys asking a ransom from us, I see that the vendors are now becoming the ransomware and saying that you got into this, ye product le lo, this will solve your problem, right? So this is a different type of ransom out there. I believe that that mentality or that approach has to change, right? Because you cannot just go to a person. So if I go to a doctor and I say I have a pain in my leg, the doctor will not just give me the painkiller for the leg. He will examine me to understand that why this leg is paining and then actually, stop the root cause. And that is what I believe that the industry has to be moved across. We are talking about the change, how the threat vector has been evolving to version 5 or version 6. The other thing that I see that the ICT vendors, they have to change the approach as well. They should not be an opportunistic. They should be the one who understand that, what is the root cause before they go and they sell the product. So we shouldn't be looking at the different type of, ransom guys, like we go, you have got this problem, put this product, you will be out of that. So the reason I say this is because I have seen it, right? I have seen it when I was on the other side of the table, that every time when I say, or when I discuss a problem with anybody, all that comes to me is a product, right? That's not how it works, right? Because as what Ajit rightly said, that there is not a single product that is a silver bullet for everything. So it matters like how you actually take an approach to understand the root cause, because a ransom has always been out there with us for a couple of years. What has evolved is that they now understand that how to penetrate, then move across and look for the weakest area and then go and so forth. So that is the same approach that I believe that even the ICT partners or the vendors like us should also take to the customer, to not just go and put a product and say, ye product le lo, sab kuch ho jayega. That's not how it is going to be. It is going to be like, let's understand that how did this happen? And that's where one of the points that Ajit mentioned is the forensic or the incident response plays a very critical role out there, is because you need to understand that where is the problem, not what is the outcome. Till the time you don't understand where's the problem, you will not be able to stop that outcome, is because what you did is you just stopped one outcome, but the approach that was taken to bring that outcome is still open for the ransom, right?
Absolutely.
So that is continue to happen because you're only focusing कि मैं ये door बंद कर दूँ, ये door बंद कर दूँ, but you're not looking at the entry point and looking at the approach. So that is what I would like.
I would just add to whatever you said. So CISOs and IT leaders sitting in this room and watching us virtually also, or who have joined on multi-platform, we all know this vendor cat and mouse game actually, and we know how to deflect. So I would just say one line actually: no vendor is perfect unless that vendor is really working, with you or with industry leaders, coming to a collaborative platform, trying to solve a particular business case using technologies. I think so. We all know how to deflect those kind of vendors. However, valid point actually. So my next, thought which comes around is like, there are many things which is happening in the industry, and some good part is like there are breach attack simulation, which is already available. There's Mitre attack, ATTK and CK defense system, which is inbuilt, and they also work along with other vendors and products and vendor OEMs. And apart from that, there's something called as like POC kind of a stuff, whereby these companies come, extend their knowledge, share their knowledge with different vendors, and they come across to share a one unified solution. Though no solution works unanimously across all platforms and industries, we all know that. But the biggest challenge which I've seen is the acceptance of particular organization in a particular sector to kind of risk which is already happening, the generation 5. Ajit has given us an insight that while we are today discussing generation 5, the generation 6 discussions are happening somewhere else actually. So my question is like, with respect to all this and organizational readiness with people, process, technologies, working with vendors, but despite that, I see a gap that they, first of all, they don't acknowledge the problem. Then they look for a vendor with one-stop solution, out-of-box solution, and then it fails. Unfortunately, the CISOs get the heat, and you know what happens next actually. So I just want to ask the panelists, what can we do within industry so that these things could be avoided, and how can we educate the board, investors, or even the executive boards to take, you know, this very seriously, because it impacts people, professionals, and everything which is dependent on them.
So I will take this question first. Yeah.
Thank you.
One thing all we should realize that in cybersecurity, technology has very limited role to play. And it's not more than 2%. 98% it's a human psychology, which normally we ignore that, you know. So you bring, you know, state of the art, best solutions, tools and technologies. But if human psychology is not getting addressed, you don't get the right, you know, expectations what you had. Yeah. So human psychology needs to be addressed. That is the first point. Second point, I mean, coming back to gentleman, in cybersecurity, there is no one size fits solution for every, you know, corporate. So what we should do first, that we should evaluate our risk landscape, that what risk we are carrying, what type of data we are dealing with, what type of information we have, and what is our risk appetite. Because I represent pharma. So pharma, you know, your research and development data is, you know, soul of the business. So I will have different priority and, you know, strategy to protect that R&D data. And if I compare with my corporate data, yeah, so different strategy you should have. Multi-layer strategy will work in that way. But first thing we need to understand that what is our risk appetite, and accordingly we need to strategize our policy and plans. That's my.
Thank you. Ajit, you want to add something?
So well said, one of the panelists. Thank you, sir, for your kind comment. See, the cybersecurity world, there is one curse which is there. Cybersecurity as such is a service. The market evolved by black boxing those services. You add your firewalls, all these technologies came in. And today, the whole fraternity is looking at a feature-driven approach. Now, when you black box a solution, let's say, for example, you have an endpoint solution. What are the features which has been there? Because we can't blame the customers, CISOs, because they want to cut the noise and want to look at what is beneficial for them from a technology perspective. And it is not just technology they are looking at practice, risk posture, they are answerable to the board on their preparedness. There are multiple things which they have been addressing. So from a technology perspective, we should move away from that feature, which is very tough, because that's how the industry has evolved for the last close to 15, 20 years. But that preparedness and gap analysis, which all vendors, and I am an ICT vendor sitting here, Hakim gave a couple of bashes to me, but nevertheless, as a representative, and we went on selling like a product because it's feature driven. Gartner says this, you have your analysts talking about it, and it becomes easy for CISOs and CIOs to align and look for those features. We need to actually think a little bit beyond, because cybersecurity is not your seams and feeds. You are actually dealing with unknowns and unknowns, as that's why we are talking about generation 5. We are talking about generation 6. So these aspects, every cybersecurity fraternity should involve in their thought process, in their practices. That's what I would like to say.
Thank you very much. Actually, very important point, Ajit, definitely. So I'll move on to the next question, which is like, with respect to the, upscaling people, getting the right skill set people, doing the right stuff with the right mindset at the board and executive level. And apart from, adaptation to latest technologies and working with different vendors on a collaborative platform to do this kind of a threat intelligence, or we call it threat intelligence platform, and do intelligence gathering and do analysis on certain white boxing and black box testing actually, and then sharing the results, what we call as lessons learned experience.
So
Is
one point which I would like to add, because
Sure.
threat intelligence we talked about.
Yeah.
See, it's an ever growing, I mean, it's not that A, B, or
It's
C,
very dynamic.
right?
Yeah.
There are multiple new players who are focused on a particular industry.
Yeah.
What kind of threat which has been happening? And that is when this dark web monitoring started coming up. You got DMAC, you got new trends which have been there. So my request to the fraternity should be that you always need to look forward and start preparing. It doesn't mean that you have to put some 4 tools. It is like how well you're prepared to tackle this. And that conviction, if you can give it to your board, to your business units, and that would be the right step to go forward.
Very valid point, definitely. So my question was around that with respect to all this, are our organizations today doing enough on all this people, process, technology, surrounded by the right vendor with the right product and solution, and catering to the upcoming generation 6 or a 7 attack kind of a thing? Because we have seen the way of evolution, the polymorphic attack, moving just from denial of services to the destruction of systems and services. Beyond ransomware, beyond financial gains, somebody just wants a fame, mostly state-sponsored activities. And if you go to the Mitre site, if you know the TTP actually, tools, techniques, and procedures, you will come to know the behavioral aspect of a particular APTs. But that is evolving too. Few newer APTs are being evaluated. Their techniques and their procedure are still being documented. So it's a continuous learning journey. So my question is, are the organizations today doing enough by investing in this kind of technologies or partnering with particular vendor or looking for a particular solution, though they don't have the right skill set at present, because this is a highly multi-skilled talent, professionals required at that end. So are the organizations ready to face this actually?
It's a very interesting question and right on the dot. So the biggest challenge all organizations face, because they are into business, they are not into cybersecurity business. And what is the right approach they need to take? And I think the earlier panelists in that discussion talked about awareness. The CIO himself said that it is not my responsibility to actually keep everyone aware. So the awareness for the user needs to go up, meaning they should be aware what has been going around. And once you're aware, technology, people, practice, everything will come into play. And yes, he rightly said, it's only 2 to 3% what a technology can do. But having said that, what is the right approach within the organization frame with people, practices? Then comes the technology piece, right? It could be at your endpoint, it could be at ingress, outgress points, etc., etc. It could be internal, external threats, etc. So the crux of the whole thing is awareness is important. That yes, despite doing everything, you are open to attacks.
Thank you. Very valid point.
And just to add on that, awareness, training and awareness really, plays very instrumental role in cybersecurity. Apart from that, one more important point is to have ownership. I mean, I am well aware that if I'm sharing my password with my colleague, probably this password get misused, because I don't take ownership of what I'm doing. So, again, it's a human psychology. So training, awareness, and ownership. Ownership is also equally important in that case. Yeah.
Thank you. So if I could just summarize that it should be top driven approach, not a bottom up approach as compared to the earlier things, to handle this kind of generation 5 attacks. And then moving beyond people, process, and technologies, the ownership and the accountability. Now everybody should be responsible, along with the CIOs, CTOs, and the CISOs. Of course, they have a higher obligation with respect to their roles and responsibilities they do in everyday, day-to-day job. But apart from that, getting the right vendor, evaluating their platform, and looking for beyond more than one vendor to provide, the organization business needs a simple, unified system integration kind of a thing, whereby multi-tools, multi-vendor could play, because no vendor can do everything. They are niche in their own areas. They are specialized in their areas. Let them do their work, and you have to just need to have, kind of a higher visibility, give the higher visibility and the right business cases to your leadership, executive leadership, get their attention, highlight the risk, and apart from that, keep doing all the good work by knowledge sharing, industry sharing. That is very much important. If I have missed anything, you people can add.
I think you covered nicely. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Bijender.
I think so. You summed it up well. But having said that, we need to think beyond. That
Yep.
is what is the bottom line. And in the security arena, you should not be looking at what has been working. You should be looking at how this risk can be reduced. It could be people, practice, everything put together, and of course, technology as well. That's what I would like to say.
Thank you. Hakeem?
First of all, Ajit, I was not bashing you guys. I was taking it on the partner that, the partner usually have this tendency to go and put up a point specific solutions to the customer. That is something that I was highlighting up. But yes, when it comes to people, process and technology, what my take has always been is that it's always going to be an ever evolving, like how the fellow panelists have also mentioned across. But at the same time, what I've also seen is there is a need of an upscaling of a team that actually does the upscaling of the end user. So it's like train the trainer kind of stuff, right? So you should have a skill and that they know their stuff so that they can train the other part of the group. And being a partner or being into this industry, what I've also seen is that retention of skills becomes one of the most critical aspect of it, and being focused, as you rightly mentioned, that everybody knows their own domain, right? So this is what I have seen, and this is a feedback that because we have got industry leader listening out here. We always, when I say we, I'm being on the IT side, the leadership type of the CISO and CIOs, and we've seen that we always have a tremendous pressure of budget, right? And that actually is the first point where I've seen that we compromise on the skills in the existing team that is managing the security posture of an organization. So if I've got one guy, I expect him to do a security stuff also. I expect him to do a desktop, a server, and so on and so forth. So that focus of nurturing a skills on the IT side, which actually enables to ensure that the skills on the other side, like end user awareness and all that stuff is there. I think the house itself has to manage the skill well, so that we are able to push it back to the end user. Because the reason I'm saying this is a practical scenario. See, we can keep on talking a lot around this, but the actual fact is that we need to understand that what the root causes are, right? And if you do not have the right set of team who can actually go back and preach the same thing, because they themselves are not aware about it, it creates a different, the investment that you're making to learn the team on the other side, it goes waste.
Thank you, Hakeem. In fact, most organizations, I think so last 6 years, I have seen the trend that they identify a security champion within organization who could be anybody, any level within the organization. They use this kind of thing such as train the trainer. And they also use the peer method of training, which we are mentioning right now. And apart from that, what I've seen in the trend in the industry for last 6 years, especially on this side, is that apart from taking the ownership accountability, the mindsets towards a greater change, openness to acknowledge and implement it using security awareness campaigning, which is happening across the organizations industry wise, and then monitoring the employees. Important thing why I say is that I was just reading before coming to the event, I was reading the Verizon DBIR report for 2022, which is data breach incident response, and FBI crime report for 2021. You will be surprised that 71% of the insider attack are due to disgruntled employees. So that's an insider threat actually. Forget about the other stats. So that leads to meaningful conclusion. Yes, employees have to be motivated, guided, trained, monitored, definitely. And I think so that's it from my end. You want to add anything?
Yeah,
Ajit?
and just to add on that, we CISOs, we believe in creating cyber warriors, who can act as a human firewall. So that really helps. I mean, I have tried in my organization, at least I can say that we are having almost 65 locations across the country. And we, at every location, we pick few champions and we, made them as a cyber warrior. And really it helps a lot. So that really works.
Ajit?
Glad to hear that, because that's a great step forward, because in the awareness, it doesn't, the responsibility is not with one person. It's actually a collective responsibility. Good. So one last thing which I would like to say is in insider threats. In India today, you don't have any regulations as far as data is concerned, except for BFSI and others. But when you really go out the Asia Pacific, you have PDPA regulation, GDPR, etc. Yeah, multiple regulations are there. When you're in a regulated environment, automatically the person who's using the data becomes conscious what he is doing. So we all believe that this regulation could fine tune and it would actually take us to the next level, especially in this continent.
Thank you. And I believe on the same philosophy. With respect to that, we have a stronger, stringent, and controlled Data Protection Act, actually, or a law, whatever is applicable. And then with respect to particular industry-wise or sector-wise, it could be aligned with, specifically for the healthcare, pharma, retail, logistics, or auto manufacturing too. So with this, I conclude the session and I welcome Q&A from the audience. Thank you. Anyone? Any questions?
You have put lunch in us, so all are feeling.
Or we got boring actually.
Hello, thanks everyone for your inputs and your thoughts. Very quick questions. Data security versus data privacy, which is the higher priority?
So it depends, it depends on businesses to businesses. So for some, like I said that for pharma, data security is more important than privacy because that is the soul of the business. Like BFSI, I would say that exactly it's same. So it depends industry to industry, but equally both are important. But I would give priority to data security.
Very interesting question. So it is like saying, first one is important or second one? Both are important, we all know. So you come from a regulated industry. So your priority gets into data security, which leads to data privacy. But in India, if you really look at it, we are reaching data privacy through data security today. That is the state of affairs. Now, when you have a regulated environment, then that will drive your data security. So both are important. What comes first is based on the environment and the industry is what my thought would be.
Well spoken. Thanks both.
Thank you.
Thank you.